Welcome to Motivemistery, where the wisdom of the ages meets the challenges of today. In today's video, we delve into the life and philosophy of Michel Foucault, one of the most influential and controversial thinkers of the 20th century. Foucault, with his acute analysis of power and knowledge, has significantly impacted the fields of philosophy, sociology, and history. His explorations of social institutions and their mechanisms of control have reshaped our understanding of societal structures. Foucault's works, including Discipline and Punish and the History of Sexuality, challenge our perceptions of authority, sexuality, and the self. Beyond his scholarly endeavors, Foucault was an active participant in political causes, advocating for prison reform and the rights of marginalized groups. Join us as we explore 30 of Foucault's most thought-provoking quotes and their profound relevance in today's world. People know what they do. Frequently they know why they do what they do, but what they don't know is what they do does. Michel Foucault's observation here points to the often unrecognized consequences of our actions. This quote underscores the disconnect between intention and impact, highlighting the unforeseen effects our behaviors can have. In modern society, it encourages us to reflect on the broader implications of our actions, fostering a deeper awareness of how we influence the world around us. I don't feel that it is necessary to know exactly what I am. The main interest in life and work is to become someone else that you were not in the beginning. This quote from Michel Foucault, a French philosopher, reflects his belief in the fluidity and transformation of identity over time. It emphasizes the journey of personal growth and transformation, suggesting that we are not fixed entities but continually evolving beings. In a world that often values definitive labels and identities, this quote inspires us to embrace change and the ongoing process of becoming. Where there is power, there is resistance. This statement by Michel Foucault highlights a fundamental aspect of his power theory, emphasizing the relational nature of power and resistance. It suggests that power is not simply a top-down force, but it generates a reaction or resistance, indicating a dynamic interplay. In contemporary society, this quote encourages a critical examination of power structures and the importance of challenging them through resistance. What strikes me is the fact that in our society, art has become something which is related only to objects and not to individuals or to life. That art is something which is specialized or which is done by experts who are artists. But couldn't everyone's life become a work of art? Why should the lamp or the house be an art object, but not our life? This insightful observation by Michel Foucault questions the conventional boundaries of art, challenging its limitation to material objects. It promotes the idea that art should encompass life itself, with each individual's existence and experiences as a potential canvas. In today's context, it invites us to view our lives as artistic expressions, valuing creativity and personal narratives as much as traditional art forms. I'm no prophet. My job is making windows where there were once walls. Michel Foucault, renowned for his innovative thinking, saw his role as creating new perspectives in places where previously there were only barriers to understanding. This quote symbolizes the breaking down of intellectual walls and the creation of new ways of thinking. In today's society, it encourages us to challenge established norms and think outside the box, fostering innovation and progress. Knowledge is not for knowing, knowledge is for cutting. Foucault's provocative statement reflects his view of knowledge as a tool for critical analysis and dissecting established truths. It implies that knowledge should be used to challenge and deconstruct rather than just to accumulate. In our modern world, this perspective is vital for innovation, encouraging us to question and rethink the status quo. If you are not like everybody else, then you are abnormal. If you are abnormal, then you are sick. These three categories, not being like everybody else, not being normal, and being sick, are in fact very different, but have been reduced to the same thing. Foucault highlights the problematic nature of societal norms that label and stigmatize those who differ from the majority. This quote criticizes the reductionist approach to human diversity and the danger of conformist thinking. It urges us to recognize and embrace the richness of human diversity in our contemporary society. I don't write a book so that it will be the final word. I write a book so that other books are possible, not necessarily written by me. Foucault's approach to writing reflects his belief in the ongoing discourse and evolution of ideas. This quote emphasizes the role of his work as a catalyst for further exploration and discussion, not as a conclusive statement. In today's ever-changing world, it inspires us to see knowledge as a continuous process and encourages the creation of new perspectives and ideas. Maybe the target nowadays is not to discover what we are but to refuse what we are. Foucault challenges the traditional quest for self-identity, proposing a shift towards rejecting imposed identities and norms. This quote advocates for the liberation from societal constraints and encourages the creation of one's own identity. In a world of increasing conformity, it prompts us to question and resist the labels and roles society assigns to us. The strategic adversary is fascism. The fascism in us all, in our heads and in our everyday behavior, the fascism that causes us to love power, to desire the very thing that dominates and exploits us. Foucault identifies the subtle presence of fascism not just in political systems but within ourselves, influencing our thoughts and actions. This quote highlights the internal struggle against authoritarian tendencies and the importance of self-awareness in combating subtle forms of control. In modern society, it serves as a reminder to be vigilant of the ways in which power can infiltrate and shape our desires and beliefs. The real political task in a society such as ours is to criticize the workings of institutions that appear to be both neutral and independent, to criticize and attack them in such a manner that the political violence that has always exercised itself obscurely through them will be unmasked, so that one can fight against them. Foucault emphasizes the need for critical analysis of institutions that are often perceived as benign but may perpetuate power dynamics. This quote encourages a proactive approach in exposing and challenging the covert operations of power within societal structures. It calls for vigilance and activism to reveal and dismantle mechanisms of oppression and inequality in contemporary settings. Schools serve the same social functions as prisons and mental institutions to define, classify, control, and regulate people. This provocative assertion by Foucault challenges the traditional view of educational institutions, comparing them to structures of confinement and control. It suggests that educational systems often replicate societal power structures, imposing norms and shaping individuals according to predefined criteria. In the context of modern education, this quote invites us to reevaluate how schools may influence and mold students, potentially limiting their creative and critical capacities. Do not ask who I am and do not ask me to remain the same. More than one person, doubtless like me, writes in order to have no face. Michel Foucault, in this quote, challenges the conventional notion of a fixed identity, advocating for the fluidity and multiplicity of the self. It reflects his belief that writing is a means to explore and express the complexities of identity beyond simplistic categorizations. In a world where identity is often narrowly defined, this quote encourages embracing a more dynamic and multifaceted concept of self. A critique does not consist in saying that things aren't good the way they are. It consists in seeing on just what type of assumptions, of familiar notions, of established and unexamined ways of thinking the accepted practices are based. To do criticism is to make harder those acts which are now too easy. Foucault emphasizes the importance of critical thinking, not just as a form of dissent but as a method to examine and challenge underlying assumptions. This quote underscores the role of critique in questioning established norms and practices, fostering a deeper understanding of their foundations. It calls for an active engagement in challenging the status quo, promoting a culture of rigorous questioning and intellectual growth. The Enlightenment, which discovered the liberties, also invented the disciplines. Foucault's statement here reflects on the paradoxical nature of the Enlightenment era, which, while promoting individual freedoms, also laid the groundwork for modern systems of control and discipline. This quote highlights the complex relationship between freedom and control, suggesting that the advancement of one often accompanies the expansion of the other. In contemporary society, it encourages a critical examination of how liberties and disciplinary practices coexist and shape our lives. What desire can be contrary to nature since it was given to man by nature itself? Foucault questions the notion of natural desires, challenging the social constructs that label certain desires as unnatural or deviant. This quote suggests that what is often deemed unnatural in society may in fact be an inherent part of human nature. It invites us to reconsider and broaden our understanding of human desires, challenging the restrictive norms and moral judgments that often confine them. Do not ask who I am and do not ask me to remain the same. This quote from Michel Foucault emphasizes the fluid and evolving nature of personal identity, challenging the notion of a fixed and unchanging self. It encourages an understanding of identity as something that is continuously in flux, shaped by experiences and time. In our contemporary world, this perspective invites us to embrace change and growth within ourselves, rather than clinging to static definitions. The imaginary is not formed in opposition to reality as its denial or compensation. It grows among signs, from book to book, in the interstice of repetitions and commentaries. It is born and takes shape in the interval between books. It is the phenomena of the library. Foucault describes the realm of imagination as an entity that evolves within the domain of literature and knowledge, beyond a mere reaction to reality. This quote conveys that our creative and intellectual lives are deeply interwoven with the texts and ideas we encounter, forming a rich tapestry of the mind. It invites us to see libraries and books not just as collections of information, but as living ecosystems of thought and imagination. The intellectual was rejected and persecuted at the precise moment when the facts became incontrovertible, when it was forbidden to say that the emperor had no clothes. Foucault's observation reflects on the challenges faced by intellectuals when confronting established truths and power structures. This quote underscores the risk of speaking truth to power and the societal pressures that often silence critical voices. It serves as a reminder of the importance of courage and resilience in intellectual discourse, especially in the face of adversity. There is no power relation without the correlative constitution of a field of knowledge, nor any knowledge that does not presuppose and constitute at the same time power relations. Foucault articulates the interconnectedness of knowledge and power, suggesting that they are mutually constitutive. This quote proposes that knowledge is not just a collection of facts but is intertwined with the mechanisms of power and control. In modern society, it challenges us to critically analyze the sources and implications of our knowledge, recognizing the influence of power dynamics in shaping our understanding of the world. Visibility is a trap. Michel Foucault, in his analysis of surveillance and power, indicates how visibility can become a means of control in society. This quote implies that being constantly observed can lead to conformity and loss of individuality. It invites reflection on the impact of surveillance and the importance of privacy in maintaining personal freedom and autonomy. From the idea that the self is not given to us, I think there is only one practical consequence: we have to create ourselves as a work of art. Foucault suggests that our identity is not a predefined entity but rather something that we actively construct and shape. This quote promotes the idea of self-creation and the artistic expression of one's identity. It encourages individuals to embrace creativity and personal development as a continuous and evolving process. But the guilty person is only one of the targets of punishment. For punishment is directed above all at others, at all the potentially guilty. Foucault's analysis of the penal system reveals how punishment serves not only as a response to crime but as a tool for social control and deterrence. This quote suggests that the judicial system often targets the wider society, instilling a sense of fear and compliance. It invites a critical examination of how legal and punitive measures are used to influence and regulate collective behavior. Do not think that one has to be sad in order to be militant, even though the thing one is fighting is abominable. Foucault here addresses the misconception that activism or resistance must be accompanied by negativity or sorrow. This quote underlines the possibility of engaging in activism with a positive and constructive attitude, even in the face of objectionable circumstances. It encourages individuals to embrace activism as a meaningful and hopeful endeavor, not solely defined by struggle and hardship. It's my hypothesis that the individual is not a pre-given entity which is seized on by the exercise of power. The individual, with his identity and characteristics, is the product of a relation of power exercised over bodies, multiplicities, movements, desires, forces. Michel Foucault challenges the traditional notion of the individual as an autonomous entity, proposing that our identities are shaped by power dynamics. This quote suggests that individuality is a construct, influenced and molded by the societal and institutional forces around us. It invites a re-examination of how we understand personal identity and the factors that contribute to its formation. Death left its old tragic heaven and became the lyrical core of man, his invisible truth, his visible secret. Foucault reflects on the transformation in the perception of death, from a distant tragedy to a fundamental part of human existence. This quote poetically articulates that death is an integral aspect of life, shaping our understanding and experience of existence. It encourages a deeper contemplation of life and death, acknowledging their interconnectedness in the human experience. Justice must always question itself, just as society can exist only by means of the work it does on itself and on its institutions. Foucault highlights the need for continual self-examination and reform within the realms of justice and societal structures. This quote emphasizes that justice is not a static concept but requires ongoing scrutiny and adaptation to remain fair and effective. It invites us to critically evaluate our legal and societal systems, ensuring they evolve and respond to changing needs and values. I'm not making a problem out of a personal question. I make of a personal question an absence of a problem. Foucault challenges the traditional approach to personal issues, suggesting that they should not be viewed as problems but rather as opportunities for exploration and growth. This quote implies that reframing our personal challenges can lead to a more constructive and empowering perspective. It encourages an approach to personal matters not as hindrances but as catalysts for self-discovery and development. There is not one but many silences, and they are an integral part of the strategies that underlie and permeate discourses. Michel Foucault emphasizes the complexity of silence, highlighting its role in communication and power dynamics. This quote suggests that silence can be a powerful tool, used strategically in discourse to convey or withhold information. It invites us to consider the unspoken elements in conversations and the impact they have on understanding and interpretation. We have to be there at the birth of ideas, the bursting outward of their force, not in books expressing them, but in events manifesting this force, in struggles carried on around ideas, for or against them. Foucault advocates for active engagement with the genesis and evolution of ideas, rather than passive consumption through texts. This quote encourages participation in the dynamic process of idea formation, recognizing that real change and understanding often emerge from active discourse and debate. It challenges us to be present and active in the moments that shape our thoughts and society, emphasizing the importance of experiential learning and critical thinking. Appreciation for joining our journey.